Let's look at the Pac-12 football preseason poll. Mm-hmm. And no surprise, USC is the favorite. And I am writing up. I've actually finished the Pac-12 for the VSiN College Football Betting Guide. I'm very high on USC, I can tell you that. And I think the Trojans get a big head start, Wes, over teams like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, because they got the best quarterback in college football coming back in Caleb Williams. He's a college version of Patrick Mahomes. And in the era of the NIL and the transfer portal, few programs or few coaches have taken better advantage of that than Lincoln Riley at USC.
Right.
And I do think the defense is going to be a lot better than it was last year when I thought the Trojans got beat up. They were not as physical as Utah in the Pac-12 title game, and that showed. But you get Bear Alexander, a transfer from Georgia, on the defensive line. Mason Cobb, linebacker, stud linebacker from Oklahoma State. If you look at the depth of the defense and the two deep, it's pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. And we know the offense is going to light up the scoreboard. So here's the Pac-12 preseason media poll. USC won. You know, what's interesting, too, is that when I got done with all my Pac-12 previews, I ranked the top 7 teams exactly the way the media poll ranks them. Mm-hmm. So I like USC 1. We got Washington 2, Utah 3, Oregon 4, Oregon State 5, UCLA 6, Washington State 7. Now, I've got some differences here down the list a little bit. One being that I think Arizona State's going to be a potential surprise team in the bottom half of this conference. But Wes, let's look at the number 2 team. You're very familiar with Michael Penix, transfer from Indiana. Quarterback had a phenomenal year last year in Kalen DeBoer's first year in Seattle. That was Michael Penix's first year in that system. He was number 2 in the nation in passing yards with 4,641. I really like this Washington team. You got 2 stud receivers returning. I think the defense is going to be a little bit better as well. All these, I'm not going to say every team, but when you read a lot of these preseason previews and write them up, you always have to kind of resist the temptation to say every team's improved over last year in this area and that area. But I do think Washington has got the potential here to be a 10-win team. And I would say the same thing about Utah. I'm a little concerned about Cameron Rising's injury. He blew out his ACL in the Rose Bowl. It looks like he's going to be ready for Utah's August 31st opener against Florida. But USC, Washington, Utah, I agree with the preseason poll, the top 3 teams in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I do as well. By the way, Pac-12 going to have their media day right here in Las Vegas at Resorts World, I believe, tomorrow. So, yeah, I have the same order with the Pac-12 in terms of having USC and Washington and then Utah right behind. I really do like this Washington team. I think they're going to be a little bit younger on the offensive line than they were last year, but we saw Michael Penix, when you have an offensive line that protects him, he can throw some dimes and he can move you down the field very quickly, and that was the problem at Indiana. He didn't always have that offensive line in front of him, which is why he is now up in Seattle, Washington. But there are a lot of improved teams. I know we want to resist that urge, but there are a lot of improved teams, I think, here in the Pac-12. You go down, I think Oregon State is a lot better. I think that they're kind of like the sleeper a little bit. I think would they pick them 5th in the media poll, and which I think is probably about right, and they're 5th on the odds board. Mm-hmm. I do really like this team. I think Jonathan Smith, the former Beaver quarterback, by the way, has done a hell of a job. You know, and he has to win with less, quite frankly, up there at Oregon State. So they're a team that very much can be a sleeper. We know Ward comes back for Washington State at quarterback. Jalen DeLora, the former Washington State quarterback, does come back for Arizona. But ASU is your deep sleeper, right?
Arizona State?
Yes.
Yeah, Arizona State's got a new coach. 33 years old, by the way, Kenny Dillingham. Mm-hmm. And if you know much about him, he's going to be an innovative offensive coach.
Former OC at Oregon, by the way, was also at Florida State with Mike Norvell.
He was. And he's learned under some very sharp offensive coaches. Here's the thing. Arizona State's got 8 home games. Plenty of opportunities to get over the win total of 5. I think this win total for Arizona State's going to at least push and probably get over. Mm-hmm. Plenty of opportunities to get to 5 or 6 wins. Sun Devils open a home against Southern Utah, Oklahoma State, Fresno State, and USC.
Drew Pine's going to be the starter for them, right? The Notre Dame transfer at quarterback.
Drew Pine's going to be the starter, but it looks like Jalen Rashada, the 5-star, is going to be probably the future. I think Drew Pine's going to open the season. He had 22 touchdown passes and 10 starts for Notre Dame last year. I'd expect him to start the season. At some point, Jalen Rashada might be the quarterback, but Drew Pine looks like he's going to open the season.
Yeah, and
as
by the way,
Emory
Jones, the former quarterback, he is now at Cincinnati.
Kenny Dillingham also worked under Gus Malzahn at Auburn. There's a realistic chance the Sun Devils could be 3-0 going into that USC game. Oklahoma State's going to be down this year. By the way, the Cowboys quarterback Spencer Sanders, he transferred to Mississippi. I'm not sure why. He's not even locked to be the starter for the Rebels, but he left Oklahoma State to go to Mississippi. Other league home games for Arizona State: Colorado, Washington State, Oregon, and Arizona. Cal on the road. I think this win total is depressed because of the 3-win season Arizona State had last year. An embarrassing loss to Eastern Michigan, the NCAA investigation, the firing of Herm Edwards. Dillingham is going to make a difference here, and I like Arizona State under 5. That's one of my favorite win totals in the Pac-12. But we talked about the quarterbacks last night. I think the Pac-12 is going to surprise a lot of people in that how good it is top to bottom. There's been a lot of media attention on the Colorado Buffaloes and Deion Sanders, but Colorado is going to be one of the 2 worst teams in the league. Look at these quarterbacks at the top. Caleb Williams at USC, Michael Penix at Washington, Cameron Rising at Utah, Bo Nix at Oregon, DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State, Jaden DeLaura at Washington State. I could actually go on and on. There's a lot of quality quarterbacks in this league, and you get all the way down to Deion Sanders' son, Shedeur Sanders, at Colorado. Wes, I like the Pac-12 a lot this year, and not just because I'm partial to the league. I bet the conference a lot, and I write it up every year for the VSiN guide. I think this is the best year the Pac-12 is going to have in a long time. Pac-12 has not had a playoff team since 2017. I think USC's got a great shot at the playoff. Unfortunately, there's some really good teams at the top of that conference too, so USC is not going to be undefeated. They're probably going to lose a game along the way. This is going to be a good league, man. I don't know. The national media might take a while to catch on because a lot of times the East Coast media likes to ignore the Pac-12. And it's going to be the last year it's going to be this good, too, because USC and UCLA are off to the Big Ten next year.
Well, speaking of that latter team you mentioned, UCLA, they are down there 14-1, sixth choice on the odds board at DraftKings. How much are you docking in terms of power rating with UCLA, knowing that DTR is gone, but they do have some quarterbacks there. Ethan Garber's been in the system. They get Colin Schlee from Kent State. I'm surprised. I guess with Deion's son there, he couldn't go with the Kent State coach there, Sean Lewis, who's the OC there. Man, that would have been a really good fit, but the son is there. But Colin Schlee maybe could be a good fit for this Chip Kelly attack, and then Dante Moore could be the future one out of Detroit. So where do you slot UCLA?
Right where I said. I've got UCLA at the 6th spot, right ahead of Washington State. I don't think the Cougars would be that good. That's what Arizona State could jump into that top 7, maybe even the top 6. But I think UCLA, I would expect Ethan Garbers or Dante Moore is going to be the quarterback. And Chip Kelly, he's made some strides the last couple of years, but Dorian Thompson-Robinson still had a turnover problem.
Yeah.
And it followed him out the door in that Sun Bowl game where he threw a couple picks in the second half, and UCLA lost to Pittsburgh and El Paso.
Well, they got to give the ball to my man Carson Steele, the Colt hero of the MAC, the long-haired Ball State running back from Greenwood, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis, 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns last season. He's not probably the most athletic running back that Chip Kelly has on the roster, but given the ball, man, they took him on scholarship for a reason.
He's going to be an impact transfer, too, because UCLA needed somebody to pick up the slack. Zach Charbonnet is gone. Charbonnet was a big-time running back for the Bruins. He transferred from Michigan. You get Carson Steele comes in from Ball State, and it's going to be a big addition. But I know it's a square opinion, but when DraftKings put up that win total at 9.5 on USC, I liked it over, and I still think USC should win at least 10 or 11 games and should be a playoff team.
Yeah.
If you can't get there with Caleb Williams and all the advantages UCLA's got in recruiting, when are you going to get there?
Yeah, they're probably, I think, one of the dark horses this year to make the playoff, and plus the schedule sets up nicely. Lincoln Riley now a second year to stockpile talent, especially on defense.
Lincoln Riley's been to the playoffs before at Oklahoma.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.